During a quiet renovation at Prince Andrew's residence, workers uncovered a hidden wall inside his private bedroom. What lay behind it wasn't just unexpected, it was explosive. Secret wiring, sealed documents, and unknown devices. When the truth reached the royal family, they were left completely stunned. This was no ordinary discovery. The discovery moment. It all began as a simple maintenance check. A team of renovators had been working inside Prince Andrew's private suite at the Royal Lodge, a sprawling 30-room estate tucked into the quiet corners of Windsor Great Park. It was routine, just updates, repainting, nothing out of the ordinary. But as one contractor approached the far end of the bedroom wall, he noticed something strange. The wall seemed thicker than expected. Tapping it produced an oddly muffled sound. The texture didn't quite match. And most unusual of all, it was warm to the touch in places it shouldn't have been. Quiet conversations followed. The palace staff were called in to double-check the original blueprints. That's when the alarm bells began to ring. There was no mention of this section of wall on any documented plans. It was just there. Suspicious, sealed, silent. Within 24 hours, a quiet decision was made to investigate. No public notice, no outside involvement. Only a select few aides and internal security staff were present when the decision was made to breach the wall. One aide reportedly said, "We thought maybe it was a storage cavity or insulation flaw. We didn't expect anything serious." But when tools touched plaster and the wall gave way more easily than expected, what they uncovered was far from simple. Behind the wall lay a hidden cavity, just over 2 meters deep, sealed off with insulation and custom-built paneling. The air inside was stale, untouched. As a beam of light hit the space, those present reportedly froze. No one spoke. One senior advisor who saw it immediately ordered the room to be sealed again, not for preservation, but for control. It wasn't just what was behind the wall, one palace source later shared. It was the question of why it was ever built, and who knew about it. The discovery triggered a flurry of phone calls and late-night meetings inside palace walls. Security advisors, legal experts, and crisis managers were called in discreetly. Prince Andrew was not immediately informed, but by the following morning, royal aides close to King Charles had received a full internal report. What began as a construction oddity was now something else entirely. A hidden space behind a royal bedroom wall that no one could explain. And inside, a silence that spoke volumes. What they found behind the wall. Once the hidden cavity was opened and properly examined, it was clear this wasn't an accidental architectural oversight. Inside the wall was a compact, highly intentional concealed area, approximately the size of a walk-in wardrobe, but far too clean, too prepared, and too organized to be forgotten. First, there were the wires. Thin, color-coded cables that led to what appeared to be an inactive surveillance terminal, no longer operational, but carefully installed. Beneath a wooden panel, investigators found sealed folders, aged yet well-preserved, containing pages of printed notes and typed communications. Some were labeled with vague terms like private access only and night staff instructions. Others bore no markings at all. What stood out immediately was that none of these documents matched anything currently stored in official royal archives. Next came the objects. A vintage-style briefcase with foreign currency, small flash drives stored in heat-sealed packaging, and a set of keys, none of which matched any lock currently known inside the Royal Lodge. Even more unsettling was the layer of dust. Certain sections of the space appeared untouched for years. Others showed fresh marks, like someone had entered recently, or worse, regularly. In one corner, investigators found a motion-activated recording device, long deactivated, facing what appeared to be a disguised second panel. That panel, still sealed, was not opened immediately, but flagged for private review. The reaction among the staff was instant and visceral. Some were reportedly so unsettled by the find that they requested to be reassigned. Security personnel began working in shifts around the bedroom suite, while legal teams debated whether law enforcement would need to be discreetly involved. "It looked like a bunker of secrets," one insider whispered, "and it had no business being there." The findings weren't criminal on their own, but they suggested intentional secrecy. And that was enough to send shockwaves through the palace. Why had this space been built? Who used it? And perhaps most important, what else was hidden? In the days that followed, the room was sealed again, now guarded around the clock. A report was sent directly to the king's private office. Prince Andrew, sources claimed, remained defensive and tight-lipped when questioned about the wall, offering no explanation. What was behind that wall changed the tone of everything. It wasn't just a structural discovery, it was a crack in the royal facade, and the first glimpse of something far more unsettling just beneath the surface. Why the royal family was rendered speechless. The moment news of the hidden wall reached the upper levels of the royal household, the reaction was nothing short of disbelief. For centuries, royal residences have maintained a reputation for privacy, yes, but never secrecy of this kind. A concealed room behind the bedroom wall of Prince Andrew, filled with sensitive items and possibly surveillance tools, pushed the boundaries of royal protocol. When King Charles was privately briefed, sources say he was visibly shaken. The king, who had already spent the year dealing with public scrutiny and personal health challenges, was reportedly blindsided. Even those closest to the monarch hadn't anticipated this level of internal shock. Prince William was said to be furious, not just at what was found, but at the deeper implications. If even family members were unaware of such a space, what else had gone unnoticed? This wasn't just a violation of household rules, it was a personal betrayal, and one that carried serious institutional weight. The royal family prides itself on tight coordination and tradition. Every room, every staff role, every movement accounted for. To discover an unregistered section hidden in the personal quarters of a senior royal, without authorization or record, threatened that very foundation. Questions started piling up. Who built it? When? Who funded it? And most disturbing, what was it used for? The fact that no one had any answers created a cloud of panic. Royal advisors, legal teams, and security experts were pulled into urgent meetings. Some believed it was an outdated panic room. Others feared it had been used for more private, potentially damaging activities. It wasn't the contents that shocked them the most, a senior courtier said. It was the secrecy, the breach of trust. By the end of the week, the mood across royal circles had shifted dramatically. Where there had been quiet disapproval of Andrew's past controversies, now there was outrage. Some insiders even questioned whether this could escalate into a legal matter, not because of one hidden space, but because of what it might represent: an entire era of unchecked behavior behind palace walls. The silence from the royal family wasn't just for PR, it was strategic. Because they weren't just reacting, they were recalculating everything. The location and significance of the room. The hidden wall was found inside the master bedroom suite of Royal Lodge, the grand and historically significant residence where Prince Andrew had been living for over 20 years. Situated within Windsor Great Park, the lodge isn't just a royal property. It's one of the most exclusive homes in the monarchy's private estate portfolio. That made the discovery even more troubling. The wall was positioned in a secluded section of the suite, adjacent to a staff access corridor that hadn't been in regular use for years. This wasn't a mistake in construction, it was an intentional modification. Experts later noted that the wall materials didn't match the original structure. Custom insulation had been added, and soundproofing was subtly layered inside. This wasn't just hidden, it was built to stay hidden. Why the location matters is simple. The bedroom is one of the most private and protected areas in any royal residence. Unlike sitting rooms or dining halls, access to royal bedchambers is restricted to the closest aides, security officers, and household members. For anything to exist beyond the wall of such a space without being declared? That's unprecedented. Investigators quickly mapped out the surrounding architecture. The sealed cavity wasn't just near a corridor, it was positioned near an external service exit, one that could allow movement in and out without detection from the main entry points. This raised alarms about the room's possible purpose. Was it a storage bunker? A surveillance post? A hidden access point? None of those answers came easily. The location was deliberate. It was too strategic to be an accident, said one architectural consultant brought in to assess the space. Equally disturbing was how long it had gone unnoticed. Staff who had worked at Royal Lodge for over a decade claimed they had never been inside that section, and some weren't even aware it existed. The level of discretion required to build such a structure without raising internal suspicion pointed to a highly controlled effort, possibly involving off-the-books contractors or private funds. As questions deepened, so did the symbolism. The wall didn't just divide space, it divided trust. It became a metaphor for how secrets could live within a system built on heritage, legacy, and ritual. In a place where everything is documented, logged, and rehearsed, one wall had rewritten the script. Potential purpose of the hidden wall. After the initial shock came the analysis. What was this hidden room actually for? No one knew for sure, but several theories quickly emerged inside the palace, and every one of them raised more questions than answers. The most immediate suspicion was concealment. Whether it was documents, items, or behavior, this space had clearly been designed to stay off the radar. Royal aides speculated it may have served as a private meeting area, where conversations and visitors wouldn't appear on official logs. Some even whispered that it could have been used for off-book operations, untraceable to the crown or the government. Another theory focused on surveillance. With visible signs of wiring and an inactive recording device discovered inside, experts raised the possibility that this room once contained monitoring equipment, either for personal security or, more controversially, to keep tabs on others. If true, that would mark a serious breach of internal trust, even by royal standards. There were also signs that the space may have served as a kind of storage vault. The items found? A vintage briefcase, data drives, unknown keys, suggested it may have held sensitive materials. Not illegal, perhaps, but dangerous if leaked. Particularly for someone like Prince Andrew, whose name has already appeared in multiple public investigations and lawsuits. Even more unsettling was the location of the cavity near a rarely used exterior exit. Could the wall have concealed a discreet escape route? Some speculated it was designed for fast exits without drawing attention, a theory that sent a ripple of alarm through internal security teams. The very idea that a royal bedroom had a built-in getaway path was beyond anything they'd anticipated. It wasn't a panic room, it wasn't a wine cellar, it was something else. And that's the problem, said one royal security analyst. The truth is, any one of these purposes would be damaging, but combined, They painted a disturbing picture of someone building autonomy inside the monarchy, a hidden power space, free from oversight. And with no record of approval, no contractor logs, and no sign-off from estate management, the wall's existence turned from oddity into threat, not just to reputation, but possibly to national security. How this ties into the larger scandal. The discovery of the hidden room didn't happen in isolation. It dropped straight into the middle of Prince Andrew's already damaged public narrative, and immediately fueled speculation that the wall was part of something much bigger. Andrew's ties to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell are well documented. Though he has denied wrongdoing, his association with the disgraced financier cost him public support, royal duties, and eventually his honorary titles. But until now, most of the scandal had lived in interviews, lawsuits, and overseas allegations. This was different. This was physical, real, inside royal property. The presence of concealed items, especially unlogged documents, memory devices, and unidentified currencies, raised serious questions about whether this space played a role in keeping damaging material out of reach. Investigators quickly began cross-referencing dates. Some of the materials appeared to correspond with key periods between 2010 and 2015, a time when Andrew was under scrutiny for frequent international travel and questionable associations. The wall, in this context, began to look less like a personal quirk and more like evidence of a cover-up. It gives weight to every rumor, every headline, every claim that people once dismissed, said a senior investigative journalist familiar with the case. And the timing? Even more suspicious. The wall was discovered shortly after internal renovations began, suggesting that had the work not been scheduled, this space might have remained hidden for years longer. Or forever. Media outlets were quick to react. Tabloids labeled it the hidden corridor of shame, while broadsheets demanded a full investigation. The palace, meanwhile, stayed silent, offering no official explanation and no denial. That silence became its own story. Inside government circles, the conversation shifted from scandal to system failure. How did no one know? How was it funded? And if this existed in Royal Lodge, what else might be hidden inside other royal estates? What had started as a renovation detail now threatened to become the linchpin in a much wider scandal, one that didn't just involve Prince Andrew, but the institution that protected him. Investigations, leaks, and internal alarm bells. The moment the wall was discovered, the internal machinery of the palace kicked into overdrive. But the effort to keep it contained was already too late. Within 3 days, whispers of the incident had started leaking out, not to the public, but to journalists, private investigators, and senior advisors outside the royal circle. Someone inside was talking. The initial flag reportedly came from a contractor's assistant, who noticed unusual behavior by senior staff after the wall was breached. Security had increased. Teams were told to avoid certain corridors, and a section of Royal Lodge was quietly sealed off, with no explanation given. From there, the chain of alarm widened. Legal teams, security consultants, and intelligence liaisons were pulled in to review the breach. They weren't just asking what was behind the wall. They were asking who knew, and for how long. And the deeper they dug, the more cracks they found in palace operations. Royal aides debated whether or not to inform the Metropolitan Police. But with no formal crime scene, only suspicions and implications, the investigation stayed internal. For now. That didn't stop the leaks. Within a week, details of the hidden space, including the presence of foreign currency, surveillance tech, and encrypted drives, were being passed to members of the press, quietly, off record, but convincingly. Multiple journalists confirmed receiving nearly identical tips from different sources, all pointing to the same conclusion. This wasn't an innocent error. This was a constructed secret. "You could feel the fear," one palace insider revealed. "Not fear of what was in the wall, fear of what would come next." The pressure mounted fast. Editorial boards began to draft pieces demanding transparency. Politicians raised quiet concerns. And behind closed doors, even some senior royals began pressing for accountability. What began as a hidden partition had now become a symbol of institutional rot. The royal household had two choices: cover up or clean house. But either way, control of the narrative had already slipped through their fingers. Fallout and consequences for Andrew and the institution. The consequences were immediate and brutal. Once the story leaked, Prince Andrew faced a fresh wave of backlash, far worse than anything he had endured since stepping back from royal duties in 2020. This time, it wasn't allegations from abroad or interviews gone wrong. This was inside the palace, on his property, behind his bedroom wall. Within days, high-level conversations began about whether Andrew should be permanently evicted from Royal Lodge. Some senior courtiers argued he had breached internal codes of conduct. Others pointed to national security risks. The final push reportedly came from Prince William, who was said to be deeply concerned about the implications and eager to protect the crown's credibility. King Charles, though still grappling with his own public image, took swift but silent action. Meetings were held, papers were signed, and by late October, the message was delivered. Prince Andrew would be vacating Royal Lodge. But that was only part of the fallout. The monarchy itself faced serious blowback. Public trust, already fragile, took another hit. Polling data revealed 68% of Britons believed there should be full transparency about all royal properties. Demands emerged for independent audits, stricter oversight, and new laws to monitor private royal holdings. Members of Parliament quietly began discussing formal reviews of estate governance. Within the institution, the hidden wall sparked a kind of internal reckoning. Staff procedures were reviewed, property blueprints were re-examined, and most importantly, the illusion of total control, a cornerstone of royal operation, was shattered. "It's not just about Andrew anymore," one former advisor admitted. "It's about what the family allowed to happen, what they ignored, and what they were too afraid to question." The royal family had long survived on public image, tightly controlled appearances, and historical authority. But the discovery behind Prince Andrew's bedroom wall had opened a door that couldn't be closed. And as news outlets continued to dig, and more insiders began to speak, the institution was forced to confront something it rarely does: accountability. Public perception and symbolism of the hidden wall. The moment the public learned about the hidden wall, it stopped being just a royal scandal. It became a national metaphor. Headlines called it a crack in the crown, while social media flooded with reactions that were far more than curiosity. They were filled with disappointment, anger, and distrust. For many, the wall represented more than a secret space. It symbolized the privilege, secrecy, and impunity long suspected to exist behind palace doors. After decades of tradition, silence, and carefully managed images, here was something physical, tangible proof that not everything inside the monarchy was what it seemed. People began asking bigger questions. What else has been hidden? Who approved it? How deep does it go? It struck a nerve because it wasn't just about Prince Andrew anymore. The wall became a mirror reflecting an entire system. If a senior royal could create a private, concealed chamber behind his own bedroom without oversight or accountability, what did that say about the checks in place? or worse, the ones missing. Polls taken just days after the leak showed a significant shift. 71% of respondents said the royal family should be required to publicly disclose details about their private residences when they receive public funding or security. Nearly half said this scandal had changed their perception of the monarchy permanently. This wasn't about politics, it was about trust, a political analyst explained, and the wall broke it. The symbolism grew. Editorials drew comparisons to other moments of royal decline: Edward VIII's abdication, Diana's divorce, Harry and Meghan's departure. But this was different. This wasn't a personal fallout. It was an architectural one, a literal barrier built within a royal home, hiding what no one was supposed to see. And now, everyone had seen it. The monarchy has always relied on mystique. But mystique is a delicate thing. Once broken, it's hard to rebuild. And this time, the damage was done with drywall, dust, and a door no one was meant to open. What happens next? What to watch? The wall may have been discovered, but the story is far from over. As of late 2025, the hidden space remains sealed, guarded, and under internal review. No official royal statement has addressed it directly. That silence, as many insiders admit, is part of the strategy. Containment over confrontation. But public and political pressure is mounting. A formal request has reportedly been submitted by a group of MPs urging an independent inquiry into how royal estates are managed, what oversight exists, and whether further hidden areas exist within Crown-funded properties. It's a conversation the palace cannot ignore much longer. Prince Andrew, though technically still a royal by blood, now stands fully removed from royal life. With his exit from Royal Lodge, his presence inside any working royal capacity appears permanently off the table. Some believe his name may soon be formally erased from key ceremonial roles and royal documentation. Inside the institution, reforms are already happening, quietly. Property audits have been expanded. Estate managers have been instructed to verify all structural changes made within the last 2 decades. Staff roles linked to building security and interior modifications are under review. The monarchy is now being forced to look inward, not just at Andrew, but at itself. One wall exposed 1,000 cracks, a former royal aide confessed. Meanwhile, the media continues to dig. Journalists are tracking down past contractors, former staff, and ex-security teams who may have had knowledge of irregular construction or unexplained renovations. Books are already being drafted. One documentary is reportedly in development. The wall may soon be memorialized in modern royal history, not as a room, but as a turning point. And the final question? Will the monarchy evolve, or will this be buried like so many scandals before it? Because in a time when public trust is fragile and accountability is demanded, this story will not be forgotten. The wall behind Prince Andrew's bedroom may have been sealed shut, but its impact has blown the doors wide open. This hidden wall didn't just expose a secret space, it shattered royal silence. The mystery behind Prince Andrew's bedroom sparked investigations, headlines, and deep questions about trust, power, and control. As the monarchy scrambles to contain the fallout, one thing is clear: what they found will echo for years to come.